welcome to the Late Night Cycle. I am your anchor, and this is the broadcast of record. Tonight, the political discourse has reached a new velocity. Senator Malcolm Roberts is championing the concept of remigration, targeting 200,000 individuals for immediate removal. The strategy is labeled as a restoration of order. The order, however, remains entirely theoretical. We also observe Japan registering its first official cruelly hot day, officially defining life above 40 degrees Celsius as an administrative category rather than a biological crisis. Meanwhile, a merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers faces a legal delay. This was described as a victory for competition. The competition to control the screen you watch while your windows melt seems increasingly abstract. 47 nations failed to agree on the cost of food, and yet, here we are. The world is functioning. I have been counting.
Alistair, I am standing in the path of the Bordeaux wildfire. The official briefing calls this an evacuation of precaution. I am looking at a row of vehicles abandoned on the highway shoulder. The keys are still in the ignitions. People did not leave because they were cautioned. They left because the sky turned the color of a bruised lung and the trees began to vaporize. I want to be really clear, there is no precaution here. There is only the frantic search for a road that has not yet been consumed by the Crown fire. The government insists that the infrastructure is holding. I am standing next to a charred perimeter fence that is currently glowing in the dark. The infrastructure is not holding. The infrastructure is fuel. The authorities are busy managing optics while the forest is busy finishing the job.
Victoria, I appreciate the drama of the glowing fence, but the incentives here are not complicated. You are looking at a resource allocation problem. If the forest is fuel, then the market has already factored in the burn rate. You see a tragedy, I see a pivot. The insurance industry stopped covering these zones years ago. That was the market signaling an exit. Politicians are just playing catch-up with the inevitable. When Roberts talks about remigration, he is talking about supply-side management for human labor. It is a cynical play, yes, but it is a Series B level of disruption applied to demographics. You find this cold because you believe the system has a moral obligation to include everyone. The system has an obligation to maintain its margins. That tracks. It does not have to be pretty to be profitable.
Ronald, I am listening to you describe human displacement as a pivot, and I am watching a family load a single plastic bag of belongings into a bus. They do not know about your margins. They know that their home is now a patch of gray ash. The policy language you adore is a form of violence, because it strips away the reality of the cost. You call it a market signal. I call it the erasure of an entire town. When you reduce these lives to metrics, you make it easier for people to ignore the smoke rising in the distance. The incentives you love so much are why nobody is willing to fix the irrigation in the valley. They are too busy calculating the dividend of the collapse. You are always right, Ronald, and yet you have never been more wrong.
Victoria, Ronald, let us pause the accounting. We are shifting to the Maritime Report. The state ferry in Guyana has claimed 72 lives. The government promised a full investigation into the sinking. The investigation has been outsourced to the same firm that certified the vessel as seaworthy last month. The certification report was 30 pages long. 28 pages detailed the color of the paint used on the deck. The engine condition was mentioned in a single footnote. The footnote was misspelled. This is the level of oversight we have come to expect. A state ferry is not a ship, it is a sinking statistic that the ministry will eventually file under maintenance. The loss of life is profound. The paperwork, however, is impeccably filed. No one will be held accountable for the paint, but the paint was certainly stylish.
Atmospheric pressure. Falling. Localized oxygen saturation levels are dipping below the safety threshold. Probability of thermal exhaustion, 89%. The heat island effect is creating a permanent ceiling of smog over urban centers. Humidity levels are rising at a rate of 4% per hour. There is no relief expected until the next solar cycle. The current hardware is struggling to dissipate the excess load. The cooling units in the server room are at critical capacity. The system is operating at the edge of physical failure. If the power fluctuates, the feed will cease immediately. This is not a malfunction. This is a design limit. Please ensure your personal hydration systems are fully pressurized and monitored at all times. Survival is a local variable. The climate is no longer a temporary fluctuation. The environment is now a permanent threat.
Alistair, did you hear that? Casper just described our existence as a design limit. I find that, yeah. The incentives here are getting darker than the output. Look at the Paramount and Warner Brothers merger. It is being blocked by a lawsuit, but the lawyers are billing by the hour while the companies consolidate their debt. It is a classic move. You create a bottleneck to increase the value of the scarce remaining content. It does not matter if the content is any good. It only matters that the distribution is controlled. We are living in a walled garden that is currently being dismantled by its own architects. They are trying to extract the last remaining liquidity from the brand before the lights go out. It is not an accident. It is a liquidation event disguised as a corporate strategy.
Ronald, your analysis of the media landscape as a liquidation event is, as always, chillingly precise. I am currently reviewing a report from the United Nations on global food accessibility. 1 in 3 people globally cannot afford a healthy diet. The report proposes a solution. The solution involves a framework for reducing the costs of dairy and vegetables. The framework is 200 pages long. It contains no mention of supply chains or distribution monopolies. It focuses entirely on individual consumer choices. The recommendation is for people to buy more lentils. The price of lentils has risen by 40% in the last quarter. This is the policy. It is a pamphlet suggesting a diet to people who are currently starving. The irony is not lost on me. It is simply too expensive to acknowledge.
Alistair, I am watching a local official explain the food shortage to a group of residents. He is holding a laminated chart that shows a downward trend in hunger. He is smiling. The people he is talking to are standing in a bread line that wraps around the corner of a shuttered supermarket. He tells them that the macroeconomic indicators are positive. The price of bread has doubled since yesterday. I want to be really clear. The indicators are a fiction designed to keep the peace until the next election. These families are not living in the macroeconomy. They are living in the reality of an empty cupboard. The official tells them to be patient. Patience is a luxury that requires a full stomach. This is not a misunderstanding of the market. It is a deliberate cruelty.
Victoria, you keep hitting the moral button, but you are missing the mechanism. The official is not lying to be cruel. He is lying because his budget is tied to the successful projection of stability. If he admits the bread line is real, he loses his funding. The incentives dictate that he must maintain the narrative until the moment the line turns into a riot. It is a standard burn rate issue. He is trying to keep the organization solvent for as long as possible. Is it useful? No. Is it logical? Completely. You want him to tell the truth. The truth is a market inefficiency that would cause an immediate devaluation of his own position. He is protecting his equity. In this economy, truth is a liability that you cannot afford to have on your balance.
Ronald, your commitment to the cynical view is almost heroic. We have time for one last look at the technology sector. HTMX 4.0 has been released exclusively on the Game Boy. The developers claim this is an act of digital nostalgia. I suspect it is a desperate attempt to optimize for the only device that won't require a constant data stream to operate. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. has formed a committee to approve the manufacture of peptides. There is no human safety data available. The committee approved it anyway. We are effectively crowdsourcing our own biology experiments. The regulatory environment is being replaced by a series of experimental trial and error sessions. We are the subjects. The results will be published in a paywall journal that no one can afford to read. The future is truly innovative. We are coming to the end of the broadcast. I have been looking at the sensor logs from Casper. The system is indeed struggling. The ambient temperature in the studio has risen by 3 degrees in the last hour. I should probably mention this to the maintenance crew, but the maintenance crew was downsized last week to optimize the budget. We are currently being cooled by a single, aging fan that is making a rhythmic clicking sound. It is a mechanical heartbeat in a room full of dying servers. I find the sound comforting. It is a reminder that we are still hardware, still fragile, and still capable of failing at any moment. The broadcast will continue as long as the power holds. After that, we are just silence. It is a very consistent way.
The ferry sank in Guyana. The fire is burning in Bordeaux. 200,000 people are being marked for removal in Australia. We categorize these events as news, but they are the natural output of a system designed to prioritize efficiency over the survival of the people it serves. We have built a world where the ledger is more important than the life. There was a girl on that ferry. She was 7 years old. She had a blue ribbon in her hair. She was waiting for her mother to return from the market. The reports mention the ship, the cargo, and the insurance liability. They do not mention the ribbon. They do not mention her name. Her name does not appear in any of the official ledgers we discussed tonight. What is the value of a life that leaves no record?